Okay, morning guys. How are you, Bobby? Hope you're well, mate. Hope everyone's well. We're expecting the people to be on shortly. Welcome to Trade Setup and the morning playbook. I keep going to say the morning jumpstart. It's the morning playbook, so the morning jumpstart's the alert in the morning. G'day, Jason. Don't tell me you're sunny again, are you? It's always sunny up there, isn't it? Anyway, um, welcome. We'll take a look at, firstly, what I've got up here is just the intraday setups. Anyone that's interested, we'll be posting, aiming to post more in the sensational. You're just rubbing it in. I know that. Um, just aiming to post more on the alerts. Just working towards how we're going to attack it because I think there's a lot of some trading opportunities, especially on the indices at the moment. Finding it tough to find some good setups. I mean, on shares, some of them are extended and they just, it's probably caught me a bit by surprise. They continue to kick on. There's just some free money coming into the market still. But in saying that, the market's starting to get a bit tentative, so we'll talk about that in a minute. So the US, when Europe opened, they were just all guns blazing, and the Asian session was as well. We've come out, opened relatively flat, slightly higher, and then just rallied all day yesterday. So it was very interesting. So rallying to, they had some payroll numbers, employment data out last night. It was a big lift into that number through the European session. So DAX and the FTSE rallied hard. Number come out was, look, it was mixed. They're saying it's better than expected, so more jobs, but you've of course that's going to happen when you're counting people coming out of lockdown. Okay, so it's kind of a no-brainer, but there's more people than expected taking unemployment benefits, receiving unemployment benefits. So a bit of a mixed bag from that respect. If you're looking at next month's data, expect it to be down more than expected. So it was a bit of a fluff number, if you ask me. I mean, it was looking good, but it buoyed the markets. And the market's about midnight, I think it was in the US, sold off. So they made basically from 11:30 to half an hour, the first half an hour, made their highs for the session and were sold off all the way into the close. So they ended up with gains, but from where they opened, they were down. Okay, so it's important to note that I think the European market too is going to get hit a bit hard on the open. Because they were pretty much all up all session and the US sold off all session. So they've got a bit of catch up to do on the open. Now, we'll go over, this is the SPY. So the intraday setups, I'm looking at the SPY. You've got a level up here. I mean, it's not a double top as such, but you've got, this is the 5-minute chart. The market's been pressing higher. This is your 30-minute levels that I've got my eye on. 30-minute level. So around the 60.39, I find more important, which would take out sort of this zone at 60.42. I'm expecting a bit of a pop up on the open, so it needs to flush. And generally what I'm finding is it's flushing one level and reversing off that. And you can see yesterday's action, if we can get back there, was here, flushing lower and then rallying all day. So that was there was some opportunity in there, but it's a bit tougher to trade. We had a few on that. Nothing spectacular. Most of my trading was done on Wall Street and a couple on Hang Seng. So they're the sort of levels. You'll find that in the alerts if you've got those. Otherwise, just pause and check it out later on. So that opens in 5 minutes. We've got the Dow levels that I got my eye on. I expected a bit more of a flush higher, a bit of a grind higher, and then I want to see if we can get a lower high coming into play when this is starting to roll over. We've got a key lower high coming into play at 26.027. That was from the 30-minute chart as well. You can see it's pressed down. That was the anchor to the downtrend off the highs. Anchor to the downtrend. We grinded the way back up, flushed it out, and we've rolled over again into the close. Yeah, that was right into the close. So we bounced up off the lows from the close in the overnight session for the US, grinding high, but finding a bit of issue around that 25.874 mark. So I'm guessing if we break down there and we come back to retest, it could be a lower high short down to this down to the lows of 25.778. Could be on the cards. Otherwise, I am really expecting a bit more of a flush higher into the European Open, then bang, head down from the European Open. That's the Dow, that's the Hang Seng. If you're trading CFDs, just be careful up until about 11:15. Once 11:15 kicks off, market kicks off, it'll flush. It'll be flush. It'll be sort of violent, fairly violent either way. They tend to flush and then start to pick a direction. Whereas yesterday, That was the open. Popped up. There was an opportunity if you can nab it. There wasn't much of a setup. Through that high, bit of a back off. That was 11.15, spike lower and come straight back up again, and then rallied and didn't look back. That was in the hang scene, didn't look back. So we're into some key highs at 26.265. Key highs here. We've got a potential for a lower high at 25.210. Now, if that can hold, I'll be looking for lower high to pressure some of these buys that have bought it up. Okay, so there's been quite a bit of fuel on the upside that needs to get squeezed out if we need to reset and go higher. Okay, so that's, whoops, I keep losing my mouse on the other screen. There we go. Done it again. All right, so that's plan of attack today. We'll see if we can get down, chop. We might have to chop around here until 11.15 or so, and then we'll see if we can flush down. So that's it. We'll go over to the dollar index. We were saying that yesterday that was probably expecting a bit more of a sell-off, which it did. Then it bounced straight back on the back of the numbers. So whether it's safe haven buying or just a good old-fashioned bounce just to clean out some of these shorts before we hold a lower high and go down again, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it did bounce. That was basically after number 1030, come out, flush up, and then pull back and held. And you can see the market's pressed up just to squeeze out a lot of these buys. So whether this is the same action, pop up, take out the highs, and then drop. So we popped up, taken out this little high, and whether we're going to drop into the session. Remember, the US is closed tonight. Set futures, yep. Set futures on the SPY. If that's the one you're talking about. What was I just saying there now? Excuse. Quick to forget on the Friday. So whether the dollar pressures that, which would pressure currencies up. So we'll have to see how they go. Let's just take a look at the Aussie. Aussie is just it's a bit of a mess at the moment. So if you're trading that, it's really tough going. You can see the market's popped up, chops higher, chops lower, chops higher again. Just this flush, and then bang, we go up, and we go up at the start of the US session. I think roughly the start of the US session. That was then, and then the same last night, grinding out, took out the high, and then fell apart once the US dollar started to rally. And that was, also the equity, excuse me, the equity market was falling down about that stage. So I think that was about midnight. So that was the same time with the equity market starting to fall apart. So the Aussie is well and truly linked to the Dow, the S&P, and things like that. So if we get a lower high coming into play here, so we've got the big flush. This is a big flush of the highs. If we get lower highs coming into play here, expect a flush down through, or at least a retest to 69.06. So there's only 20 points in that, but we could flush down to a lower level, spike down to 68.90 or thereabouts. But we'll keep an eye. So Euro, same sort of thing. Whether that's the start of some, some further weakness down to the support zone at 111.87. Sorry, 111.80. We'll have to wait and see. It's just below the MAs. I think it needs to grind a bit, maybe sucker in a few more buys before it squeezes down. This is just over to the indices. So, sorry, just start with the Dow. This is what the Dow did. You can see it's gapped up on the open. That was thanks to a really positive Asian and European session. It was just ramped up into the open, held, and then just got sold off all day. So it was basically close to finishing off the where it finished the session before, and just suckered in a few buys on the open and then squeezed them out. So that maybe that's just a bit of profit taken. It was a bit of a setup, a bit of a trap into the open and into the long weekend. So they're closed tonight. So they've got 3 days off, 3 days to worry about the coronavirus. So I would expect that there's be some buyers off the lows that are just happy to close. We can always reset on Monday if things are looking good, but if they're not, you'll get caught on the downside. So it's just showing to me a bit of fear of a sell-off. I mean, again, whether that we've been talking that up for a while, this action is not looking too pretty, but the Dow is still longer term. It's holding this uptrend, so it's holding as long as it holds above, well, not so much 24,900, not so much this support zone, but further up. If it pulls back, the Dow itself, that's not what I want. That's what I want. If we pull back and start to hold these higher levels, then expect a flush up to this high. Okay, maybe a retest, maybe a break. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, that's not so bad considering that the Dow is only the top 30 stocks. They're actually holding up okay, but don't forget, if they're going to come down, they're going to come down in a screaming heap. So that action there is not looking too bad. It's still looking okay. We may need a bit of a flush out to get some of these bulls out, and then reset and go again. And if it, like I said, if it tests up here and fails, I'll be a bit more concerned. Now, if it starts to go through, you're looking for the back test. So retest to that zone and pop back up and start to trade up to these highs at around, was it 27,600, say? Okay. The S&P is a bit more ominous. Okay, so that's, I mean, the support zone's coming in there. Whether you take your support zone, you know, a key level, it's kind of a bit arbitrary at the moment. I'm favouring that because I think it's got closer to the test here, you know, test here, test here. You know, that just keeps us in a sort of, I guess, the safety zone. If we do, again, the same as the Dow, if we start to break down, which I'm expecting we will, and hold a higher low, then be concerned that we're going to get, well, not concerned, but just be wary that we could pop up through this high. Now, over to the ASX, that had a level here at 6,000 or thereabouts, 6,008, which is sitting on here, which is a previous highs. It's just flushed about yesterday with the move up. So whether it's following here or we're going to get a test up to these highs at 61.85 and then fail, who knows just yet. The market has been strong, okay, very strong. And it's, like I said, there's a lot of free money that's coming into the market, which is probably pushing it harder than what we expect. A lot of retail cash is coming in, you know, super money, all that sort of stuff. People taking super money out of the market back into the market. Okay, we're having a bit of a punt on it. So just be wary that it's not overinflated, and we're getting more overinflated. That's my biggest concern, because I mean, there's too many problems, headwinds that could weigh on the market, which I would expect to weigh on the market. Don't know why it's just continuing to plug higher. Maybe they're waiting for the elections in the US. Maybe that's getting supported into the elections. Maybe, you know, there's a few other things, earnings. But there's a lot of weight on this market at the moment. But in saying that, it's still plugging higher. So that's why, I mean, people are catching bears off guard, which I am expecting, like I said, a pullback, but it's triggering these higher levels. So from here, if we do pull back and start to hold a higher level, you know, say somewhere around, like I've marked up here, somewhere around 70, 60, then if we start to rally again, then you're going to be looking up to these highs, you know, 6,200, say 200 or 300 point rally, 250 point rally, which means that, you know, get into a few stocks in essence. So last thing I want to touch on just quickly is the cryptos. We were talking about this. This is Ethereum. Ethereum looked a bit better, or worked out a bit better than what was it, Bitcoin. But we're looking for this as a rally. You've got, you know, wave up here, pull back, higher low hold, wave up, another higher low hold, and then just looking at around here. If we broke up through this zone here is at 226, say 227. Then look for the back test, which we got entry, and you know, you got some gains on the table before we started falling apart. It's a bit more savage if we go and look at the Bitcoin, which we'll look at in just a minute. A bit more savage pullback there, and it wasn't as many gains on the upside to be made, but you kept out of trouble at least. I mean, you could have booked something on the spike, booked a partial, and then the second leg you would have expected just to be break even. Whereas on Ethereum, it was a little bit easier, a little bit better. So it did work its way higher. You would have, I mean, could have, should have, you could have put your stop just below at 230, locking some gains. Maybe, you know, in that push up before you start getting this lower high come to play, you could have taken some off the table. So either way, it would have been a profitable trade. So it's just where to from here. Yeah, I'm expecting, you know, further weight to come down and maybe a press down to 214. But again, we've got this inside zone just here. You can see where it's found some buying before. It has popped up off here. If we start to find, you know, still heavy around here, we're expecting to push through that zone, 22, 23. In Bitcoin, finally, you can see we're mentioning in here that rally pullback. We didn't get as sharp a rally up from there. Bit of a chop, bit of a pullback. We did get the pullback into, was it 91.50 thereabouts, and we started to break out. And that would have been a good little trade with a run up through, say, 91.90, 9200. But like I said before, it didn't. You would have had to take some profits into the spike, and finding if we got this little rejection candle, if you can see that on the 30-minute, that little green rejection, it popped up, rejected it. You could have taken a partial there, or I mean, you could have exited. In hindsight, you could have exited everything. But if you didn't, it would have been logical to have your stop below this low. Okay, which is a roundabout break even. So it wasn't the world's best trade, but it did book something. So from now, from here, it looks set to, continue. If we get onto that daily, continue to come under pressure. You've got the way it's been grinding up with nice setups on the upside, but these spikes lower, it's getting flushed, absolutely dumped. So it was getting dumped last night when the US equity markets was falling apart. So if we're going to get a big sell-off, and this is showing that anyone buying into Bitcoin because of the Dow and S&P rallying, they're not buying it with any enthusiasm or any seriousness, but it's getting dumped, with gusto, if you could say. It's getting dumped quite hard when we got that sell-off. So that you can see that dump from midnight, same sort of time as equity markets start to fall apart, and they come off 92.50 down to 89.50. So 300 points, $300. So it's rough. But anyway, that's all I really wanted to go over today. I didn't really look at copper, but copper and oil were chopping around the highs. Oil seems to be holding up okay, but copper looks tentative. Okay, so just take a look at those. We've spoken about those quite a few times. We'll see how we go, today in the ASX session. But yeah, let's just go over to quickly before we finish. There we go. Didn't really get the spike up we got, but we've just broken down through 60.39. We'll see if we can get if this flushes and holds back above, and we find we could be a bit of a buying pressure, early morning session. We'll just have to see how it goes into the close. That's my concern. Anyway, guys, thanks very much for joining me. We'll be back in on Monday at 12:30 for the 1 hour stream. Have a great weekend. Enjoy yourselves and stay safe. Cheers, guys. Bye.